If I knew these 7 things before I started music production, I'd be a monster in this game. We are Los Padres. We've had official remixes of Rehab, Cheat Codes, Layback Luke, Two Friends. So let's get right into it. Imperfection is perfection. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but let me explain.
Alrighty, guys. So I've thrown a chord progression in here in the key of D minor, put on a grand piano, and I'm going to play it in the context with nothing on there, dry as bone, everything quantized on the grid, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Dope. So what we can do straight off the bat here, and the problem with this, as I said before, it's too perfect. It's too quantized and too on the grid. And what you can kind of start doing, take a couple notes, and maybe just start single-handedly moving them over ever so slightly. And what you can do is hold command and your arrow keys on your keyboard, and you can do this either one by one, grab two at the same time, however you'd like. And you can even make, a little bit more to the left, kind of have like a this one on the bottom start first, kind of like a waterfall effect, if you will. And don't spend too much time doing this, but obviously if you give a little bit of attention, as you saw here, this clears out the next one, so easy problem to fix. Make sure you just duplicate that, and same thing here, guys. And once you're done here, we'll play here, and this will hopefully sound a little better. Now we're cooking. So as you guys notice in this section right down here, there's a velocity bar, and this is kind of hitting pretty hard. And what this means is every key MIDI note is being jammed at the same velocity, and I don't know what human really does that. So what you can do in this MIDI bar here is throwing them all up here, and I like to kind of keep it in the 80 to 90 range here. That's kind of like normal. And then once you do that, you start kind of playing with these one by one, and really no right or wrong answer here, folks. Just kind of do what you please, what you feel is right. Domino, I'm sorry, not domino, just kind of roll the dice here a little bit, and there you go, kind of randomize it. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys, so what I've done here is I've opened up a new channel with a Serum initial preset patch. And I put the original MIDI that we started with everything quantizing on the grid, to show that even if you have a MIDI that's quantized and on the grid, you can still take it to the next level within the plugin that you're working with, or the VST plugin that you have. And we're going to use Serum here for an example. No patch loaded up. This is just what you start off with. And it's probably going to be a little loud as we start off with. Let's hear it. Now what I'm going to play with here is this unison bar, which, as you see here, if you hover over it, it tells you what it does. It's just going to create multiple voices for this oscillator. And as you crank this up, you're going to see these lines one by one start to add up. And what this is doing, it's adding width to your oscillator. I think it goes up to 16. As you see here, it turns red. It will add a little bit of CPU usage to this. But I like to kind of keep this in the 7 to maybe 11 range. Odd numbers always will be beneficial to that. And as we'll start off from 0, start cranking this up, and you'll hear the difference. Take this detunement right here and start widening. And I'm going to add another oscillator. Why not? And see what happens here. Throw it up an octave. Alright, now we're cooking here. So there's a section here that most of you probably don't know about, but you can kind of glide your notes a little bit here in this portamento section. And what you do here is just turn this knob. can, again, do this tastefully and add a lot of character into your sound. And the cool thing about this, guys, is you can do this with any preset that you load up with any of your favorite sounds. And if you're trying to get extra width, especially with either super saws or something that you're trying to really create within your patch, instead of adding like a wider or some sort of stereo imaging tool to kind of give you a lot of that width post processing, try to go within the source signal within Serum and just try to widen it within the wavetables that you have here within your Unison, and that will create way less phase issues than going into something where you're just kind of adding it to a doubler or something, like I said, post processing that. Just we'll run into a little bit of issues with that. So this is a cool tip that you can do within Serum. And one last thing you can do here. Now again, we have everything quantized to the grid that we had. We're gonna move that over. Take the one that we had before. That was a little bit more humanized, a little bit more, off the grid. And now we'll see what it sounds like with all these changes that we had here, and see what goes. So that sounds super cool, as it sounds like you're literally playing that on a synthesizer, and that's all taking that from a MIDI chord that you might have had in a sample pack and whatnot, just to take that again to the next level. Imperfection is perfection. Tip number 2 is that you can't ride 2 horses at the same time. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a massive Red Dead Redemption fan, but because when you're first getting into the production world, it can be very overwhelming, and a jack of all trades is a master of none. And if you are special in vocal chops or sampling or something, beyond that, even if you have a background in music, I would probably use that as my forte and start building around that for my workflow and creativity, so that I can easily get my idea to canvas within Ableton and not have so much trouble. And that's one of the benefits that I love about Ableton, is that it's really easy to do such thing with getting your idea to canvas. So what I've done here is I've gotten a vocal chop idea. We are in the key of D, as I've had here, and I found one that it's in the key of E minor. And the first thing that I like to do when I'm finding vocal chops for the idea is to first get out of the key, so that I'm not finding something that when I listen to it on like a television ad or something like that, I'm like, oh man, I've heard that before. First thing is get out of the key and then go back home. So if we're in the key of E, go back 2, and this is going to bring you back in D. Now this might sound a little bit at home, if you will, back to home bass. Root.
So lost without you. I've been so lost without you.
So that sounds really good as it is. So one thing you could do to again kind of play around this before you start getting into the vocal chop area, if you will, you can maybe try jumping up a 5th, so that you're not always hitting on D, 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 D. And so DFA is kind of the chord that you would build off of that, A being the 5th. So we are in D, back to E, F, sharp, G, sharp, A. And now let's listen to this and see if we kind of get a different vibe from this.
I've been so lost without you. I've been so
Let me throw this down an octave.
I've been so lost without you. I've been so
It doesn't sound bad, but again, this is kind of to broaden your ideas a little bit more. But I'm going to go back to D. Sounds a little bit more natural, if you will. So that was kind of to go back to what we were doing in the root. E, D sharp, and D2. So back to here. So I'm going to throw this vocal chop into a separate MIDI channel, because for me, I work a little bit easier when I'm on a MIDI keyboard and I have my samples already installed in there, and I'm just playing along rather than seeing a audio form and maybe just cutting and splicing some things. So what I'm going to do here, open up a MIDI, and I'm going to sneak this sample that I have here into the MIDI channel that I have. And this is still in the key of E that I have. So I definitely want to make sure that I change that when I bring this to the slice mode here. And then it's going to be in the transpose section right here. And we went down, I believe, 2, just to make sure we're not wrong. 2, 1, 2. And this is where we can really kind of get some great ideas, guys. So as you saw, this is a slicer mode here, and you can slice this really by transient, beat, region, manual. Really, the possibilities around this. And beat and region is probably where I'm going to be hitting here, because that gives me a little bit more of an area to kind of find what I'm looking here. And it does. Ableton's not a perfect program in finding the exactly where you might want to be with your transients and slicing. Most of you might have to kind of tailor this the way that you would like it to. But once you find it, boom, that kind of go with that. And again, this is my forte. I tend to put samples on my keyboard and kind of play along with that, and then print out an idea and keep it going, rather than again how other people might work and just cutting and splicing some things. So let's try this out.
Lost without you. I go lost without you. Lost without
Alright guys, so what felt like an hour long, we laid down a super dope vocal chop idea using the sample that we had, and with some slicing and some moving of some areas that I have here in the transients that I want for specific vocal phrases or specific words that maybe I wanted to bring out. All I had to do was just kind of move this arrow here in the slicing tool, and again, it goes such a long way to get certain areas that you might want to push through. And so I'm going to play this in MIDI form before I print it all out into audio form, just so you can kind of get the vibe of what it's going for.
so lost without so lost with you. Been so lost.
So pretty cool, right? What we're going to do here, freeze this, flatten it,
So lost without
and it's still there. And so I'm just going to throw some reverb here, kind of wash this out. I just copied the one from my return channel, crank that down a little bit to maybe the 20s, put some more decay.
so lost without so lost with you. Been so lost without so lost with
So this is a really dope concept of taking the vocal chop idea that we had and making it our own. And again, I'm not an expertise in vocal chopping, but I took that idea and was like, well, if I throw this into a MIDI instrument, really anything, you can put this in your keyboard for fun, or be a keyboard warrior and start kind of vocal chopping a little bit, kind of like Fred again, and really just take this idea into your own and either move some of the slicers within Ableton, either start a vocal phrase or a vocal chop in a certain area that you're looking for. If it's like a certain word, love, or something that you really want to push out, and then kind of play along with that. That's the power of some of these tools within Ableton that you might not know of within a sampler, to go in, and you might not have known that slicer button was even there, or that the transients and the beats in the region was even there too. So these are really cool tools to make your ideas really pop out and to really execute what you might be good at in your forte.
Tip number 3 is going to be there's multiple paths to success. And pretty much what this entitles is that everybody's going to have a different career path. Everybody's going to have different routes and different ways, that they take their careers. Think of it as like the game of, life, board game life. But, I remember 12 years ago when I first really got my foot in the door with this, I was more into the private gigs, doing weddings and quinceañeras, and then that got into the proms and homecomings, and then that turned into clubs, and then opened my eyes to productions. So everybody has different routes when it comes to wanting to get to their destination. You either want to be a DJ and then you turn into a producer, start as a producer, and then wanting to get into the DJ world. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to it, guys. And so the best thing about that is that you just constantly keep pushing and try to always learn new things. And in the world that we live in now in 2024, it's kind of like in your hands. You have content creation and really create the demand and put your name out there with music and funny different ways and social media. And so now it's so different from back in the day with labels. Like back then everybody needed to was trying to get into the labels and trying to really inspire with the spinning records of the world. And nowadays you can create that demand for yourself as an artist, and it's really great. You can build your own following and do what you really want when it comes to the production mode and make it your own. And that's what's so great about kind of this world that we live in with content creation and music production, kind of all in in the one world. So definitely multiple paths to success when it comes to that. And don't think that your career is going to end up going one way when, certainly might go another route. And if I could go back and change some things about what I would, do in my career, is definitely learn more about the music business side. I would certainly, get into sync placements and seeing, what my possibilities are with that, and see if I can make, some sort of a hustle money and side money with that, and maybe turn that into something else. All right, guys. So tip number 4 is going to be put a soft clipper on your master. Now this is something that is pretty crucial. And I once had a colleague, Carlos, once upon a time ago, always say, it always comes down to what goes in your mix. And so a lot of people always rely on masters and really what saves and their mix downs and all that. But guys, if you just put a soft clipper, what that does is just put kind of a ceiling over your house, and you can have drums hitting hard and synths hitting hard, and kind of make sure that it doesn't distort in a bad way. Now I'm saying don't rely your mix down on this, but certainly this is something when you start getting your foot in the door, you can have hard hitting drums and hard hitting elements in your track and not have them clip so much and distort in a bad way. And so a soft clipper is crucial to something you could really start in your music production career. Tip number 5 is going to be dress up your best idea. And what this means is pretty much any idea that you have, if you're feeling inspired in the studio and you have 1, 2, 5 ideas that you're spitting out, pick the best one that you have out of there and build around it. But the other 4, tracks that you have laying around, please do not throw those out. A mistake that a lot of producers make is that once they find, a good melody or a good, theme that they're trying to go with, they'll trash the other ones. And you might not know that you might be throwing away some gold on there. So I would, double take and make sure that any other ideas or any other elements that you have in there, maybe you can save a bass line, save an arp, save a melody, and the vault, what I call it. And then when you go back later, 3 months, 2 months, 3 years, 5 years, and you reuse, recycle an element that you have back in the day, and you bring it back to life and maybe modernize it a bit, you'll thank yourself later, because that could turn out to be maybe a hit record or a hit melody that you're just like, man, that was something I'm so glad that I held on to. But as far as dressing up your best idea, this is something that I feel, can kind of go around in the olden days that Lil Wayne would always say, let the beat build. And so if you just pick a theme and an idea that you have, an identity with your track, whether it's a melody, whether it's a vocal, and you try to build around that, try to keep it in that area, in that vicinity of the spectrum. Try not to go crazy with it, and try not to do some sort of hybrid genre or anything of that sort, guys. Reference tracks are always huge, but once you get an idea or a theme, try to build around that. Tech House, for example, try to, if you have like a simple bass line that you got or super groovy bass line, try to duplicate that into some leads, and then just recycle and replace some of those elements, and just amplify and accent some of those areas in the track. And that goes such a long way when it comes to really dressing up your idea that you had. Tip number 6 is going to be look for new samples. Now this is something that I definitely don't want you guys to get carried away and think that you need to be doing this weekly or monthly or something like that. But think of this as always kind of freshening up your recipes that you have in your kitchen. Sound selection these days is more important than I think it ever was back in the day, because it can cut a lot of corners, but in a healthy way. Some people get really carried away when down the rabbit hole when it comes to EQing and compression and all this other craziness, when maybe they just need to replace its sound. Nowadays, when it comes to sound selection, it's more important than it was, ever back in the day. Producers who get lost when it comes to EQing and compression and all that craziness with signal flow, sometimes maybe just changing the source signal and the sound that you have to a different snare or different clap, hell, maybe a different kick. And that could just solve all of your problems, rather than just having to dive into hours and minutes and whatever it may be to fix the solution that you have for a simple sample that you probably need to just refresh. And so what I would recommend to producers is maybe twice a year, a Black Friday or a certain time of year where you feel, like you're not inspired, in the summertime where you're just kind of got a lot more time to kill, if you're, off from work and a little bit more longer than usual, like whatever it fits in your schedule. But I would just, try to pick 2 times a year and not get carried away with it, and just try to freshen up your samples in your library. Tip number 7 is going to be find a mentor. Now, if there's anything to grasp in this video, this is probably the most important tip. Music production, guys, is not easy. This is not something that you can just dive into and learn in a week, a month, hell, not even a whole year. You're constantly learning new things, and with music production, you're jumping into something that is just constantly, again, changing and evolving. And finding a mentor to kind of keep you grounded, learning basic foundations and techniques, to then launch you off into the YouTube universities, that can be such a crucial thing to have, rather than just jumping into the YouTube universities and grabbing different techniques from different types of instructors and people who you don't know really where they learn from. And not to say that they're wrong, but it's sometimes hard to learn from 7 different instructors when maybe you could just stick to one who's learned, a significant amount of time with music production, and just stick to their techniques. And then once you master those techniques, then you can maybe start looking in different ways. And having a mentor or a private instructor that you maybe meet weekly or monthly or something like that is so helpful. And think of like your favorite athletes or favorite, singers or musicians. They definitely at some point had someone to amplify and help their techniques, so that they're constantly staying polished and freshening up on those things. And Michael Jordan, these famous athletes that you have, LeBron James, all these people, they always in the off seasons or times when you're not looking on screen, they're polishing up their skills and keeping in tune with their techniques. And if you guys have some sort of music producer community where you can, join with DJs or music producers, or some sort of Patreon on, like, where you can just watch, different people just cook up and do work, and you feel like you might be the dumbest person in that room, get excited for moments like that, because I know I do. In moments like that, where I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room, I strive for that more than anything, because I get to extract information and learn from everybody more. And it's just, it's the best. It's honestly the best. So as long as you guys keep pushing and keep learning, I promise that something will come across. And if you guys learned something from this video, please make sure you guys like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think, and see you guys next time.